a lot of people lack clarity more than they think, right? And they're applying to a wide range of jobs, and can absolutely impact your results, definitely. So when I'm in a coaching session with a client, we kind of dissect things a little bit. So for example, a lot of times people will know something is misaligned and doesn't feel right, but they don't know what. Well, there's a number of things it can be. Sometimes it's that maybe if they're currently working, or even we can look at their last job if they're not, it's the company. So we might ask, is this something related to the company that you're at? Because sometimes we think we're in the wrong job, we're just at the wrong company. Or sometimes we're at the right company, but we're in the wrong job. Or not at the right level, right? And we get our wires crossed a little bit, and we don't know where the pain is actually coming from. So I walk clients through some questions about that. Is this something that could be solved by changing companies? Is it their culture? Is it their leadership? Or is it something that's specific to the line of work that you are in? Okay, let's drill into that. What are you doing throughout the day that you're meeting up with this resistance and it's more uncomfortable, right? Or is it maybe you feel like you've hit a wall and you're not advancing? I hear that all the time from clients. They feel like they've just hit a ceiling at the company and it's become kind of monotonous and they're not growing and they're not learning, right? All three of these have different approaches and different solutions because they're different problems, right? So all we know sometimes is that I don't like where I'm at anymore, so I'm just going to go start job searching. So they just dive in without realizing, wait, what do I want to get out of this? What actually needs to be different in this role? Let me take this opportunity to do some self-evaluation and ask myself some really hard questions about what is my role? Could I have shown up better in this role? Is there anything that I could have done perhaps to be better? We often overlook our own role in this as well.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Job Seeker's Journey podcast. First and foremost, it is an exciting time to be in my beloved city of Oklahoma City. Our hometown team, the Oklahoma City Thunder, just won Game 5, taking a 3-2 lead in the NBA Finals with Game 6 coming up on Thursday. So it is hopping around here. It is exciting. And congrats to the Oklahoma City Thunder for winning another game and being one step closer to winning an NBA championship. But with that being said, we're here for you, the job seeker. If you're like me, you have heard people refer to things like the hidden job market. And you may be unsure what exactly are they talking about. You may see people post about the jobs that aren't advertised, the jobs that are available that they don't put on job boards, that comes from professional relationships and things like that. Well, today's episode deals in this topic, the hidden job market. Today I speak to Lorraine Rise, a career coach who makes it her mission to help job seekers maximize their ability, maximize their potential, and find that next opportunity. In addition to talking about the hidden job market, we also get into who should be looking for a career coach. In what situation does it benefit you the most to hire a career coach and make that investment in yourself? I'm really excited about this episode. Let's go ahead and get into it. Here is my conversation with Lorraine Rise. All right, I'm here with Lorraine Rise, and I had the amazing opportunity to join your podcast as a guest, which will come out soon, which was a great experience. I've only gotten to do that twice in this journey so far, but it's always interesting because I look at myself and I go, well, I'm not an expert in this. I'm not a coach. I'm not a recruiter. I'm not a this. I'm just a person that's going through it. So it's always interesting to be on, but it was such an honor to do that. And you were so gracious to be willing to come on here. So before we kind of dive into our topic, I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself and kind of give background of what all you do, which is quite a bit at this point.
Yeah. Thank you. And of
start.
course, it was wonderful to have you on the show, Brad. So I'm happy to reciprocate. I think this is, it's cool for me to come on to your show as maybe not your most typical guest. You came on to mine as not the most typical guest. It all worked out, right?
Yeah.
So I'm Lorraine Rise. I'm here in the Washington, D.C., Northern Virginia area, and born and raised here. And yeah, it's been, I will tell you, my career has not turned out the way I planned it when I was in my 20s and knew everything, right? Has not. And it's been better than that. But I started out in health and wellness. I actually worked for one of the biggest names in weight loss. I worked for Jenny Craig for almost 6 years. Thought I might make my career there as a director and a trainer, and got laid off in 2013. And, really it was a pivotal time for me to think about, where do I want to go next? I was basically in retail management, which I didn't want to stay in. So I had took that opportunity to have a clean break. And I went back to school and got my master's degree and went into human resources. I kind of decided at that point that, what I loved most about my career so far was the employees. I realized I loved helping people in their professional lives, hiring them, training them, seeing them get promoted. So I decided to kind of make a career out of that by going into human resources. So then I did that for a couple of years, went through a string of layoffs, as happens all the time in HR. We're very vulnerable in that way. There were a lot of buyouts and acquisitions, one unceremonious firing there as well. So for various reasons, I was laid off 5 times in 7 years. And this is all in my early career, going, in my 20s up to about age 31. So what happened there, not by choice, it just kind of was what life threw at me. I learned how to job search. I had to. It was sink or swim. I had a young kid at home. I had student loans still at that point, and I wasn't making anywhere near what I'm making today. I had to produce income, even despite all of these layoffs. So I got really, really good at job searching, and because it was my full-time job. And little did I know I would end up eventually making a career out of that as well as a job, as a coach, coaching people in job searches. So what I do today is twofold. I'm still active in the world of recruiting because I love being a recruiter. So that's kind of my day job right now. And I also have Career Uprising, which is 10 years old. That's my coaching and resume writing firm. So it's kind of interesting. I get to kind of straddle both sides of the fence, right? I get to work with job seekers in a coaching capacity, but then I also get to work with the companies in a hiring capacity. And it gives me a very, very unique kind of 360-degree perspective on hiring. But I've made hiring the cornerstone of my career in one way or another. So that's where I am today. I love helping people to find work. It's the most joyous thing I can possibly do because I've been in their shoes and I know what it's like to have the rug pulled out from under you and you are forced to find a plan B.
Yeah, I love that. And what is it about? Because I know for myself, one of the things about this podcast, outside of the fact that I'm going through it myself. And so I'm obviously having the same thoughts and feelings as people. But what is it about for you about HR and helping people get to their next opportunity that just seems to really get you up? I mean, you light up when you say it. It clearly is a passion of yours, but what is it about that really
I think it goes back, as most things do. I think it goes back to my childhood. I think it really does. So I remember, seeing my dad, who also, we had a big family, we had 4 kids. And my mom stayed home for the most part. So she didn't have income most years. So it was up to my dad to provide for all 6 of us total. And he also, interestingly, had a very similar career path first that then happened to me, where he went through a string of probably 7 or 8 times where his company got bought out. He never went anywhere, but the company name kept changing and he never got laid off. I don't know how he did it, if it was like an energy or a mindset that he had, but he was always safe, but he always lived under that threat, right? Mm-hmm. That could go away. And if it did, it was the only income. And I grew up by very modest financial means. So it would have been a really big deal. He had lost his job,
Right.
really big deal. So I for some reason, I latched onto that as a kid. I paid attention to that. Even as like a 9-year-old, for some reason, I think I've just always been kind of economically minded, I guess. I don't know. I watched him and I said, when I grow up, I never want to be paycheck to paycheck like we are now. And I'm going to forge my own way and make sure that I'm secure. So for some reason, I just had a lot of these moments as a young kid that reinforced the importance of financial security and job security, and how important that is. So I think I just carried that with me through adulthood, and it set the foundation for making a career, helping to empower people to advance in their careers and take ownership of their careers, so that they don't find themselves, or if they do find themselves in that position, they're in a good place.
That's awesome. So one of the things I love to do is when someone's coming on, you try to research that person. I always try to figure out what's something they get real passionate about, what's something they're excited about. And as I was scouring through your website and looking at episodes, just kind of ironically, your podcast, which before we forget is the Career Uprising podcast. So if anyone else is looking for just more amazing information about the job search and how to find your next opportunity, I highly encourage people to go look at the Career Uprising podcast. But a couple of days ago, you had a podcast come out about how you landed a job without having to submit an application. Which comes back to something else I saw on your podcast, which was the hidden job market.
Yeah.
And this is kind of one of those terms that gets thrown around some, that you'll see people post about, of try to find those jobs that aren't advertised, try to do all those things. And that's one of those things that can sound really great. And then the moment you start trying to find that, you get lost, because you just start to lose, where do I go? What's my steps? So before we kind of dive more into that, what exactly would you call the hidden job market?
Yeah, it's a very, very real thing. And because it's hidden, it makes it almost like a game to try and find a job here, right? But the truth is, and I can verify this as my time hiring and being a recruiter, there are a lot of job postings that are not posted. And there's a number of reasons for that. I mean, we could go all into that, but obviously we know employers want to find people who are referrals, right? Those are really trusted, and they want to save money if they can. A lot posting jobs, believe it or not, and can be expensive sometimes. And especially if you're a smaller company, maybe you don't have those resources. So there's a number of reasons why, but yes, we have this whole hidden pile of jobs, some of which may be roles that could be created, right? Maybe when they find the right person, they think they want one thing, and then they find a candidate and they go, oh, no, we need this. Don't ever assume companies know exactly what they're looking for. They don't, okay? Sometimes they don't. They may say they do and think they do, and they do not hire the right person or at the right level or whatever it is, right? So sometimes they have to find the candidate to see what they want or don't want as well. But it's absolutely true that some jobs are not posted at all, or some jobs that you see that are posted aren't really actually open, and they don't really have the intention of hiring anybody right now. I can tell you examples throughout my recruiting days where that has been the case, and there's a whole lot of reasons for that too. So all of this makes it really convoluted and challenging for someone who's like, I'm just trying to find a job. Why has it got to be a game, right? Why has it all got to be hidden? I'm right here in plain sight, right? But unfortunately, that's just kind of the way it is. But it does make sense when you understand hiring. And if a lot of job seekers, if they've never been involved in the hiring process, they don't understand a lot of it. Doesn't always make sense. And why would it? So I think sometimes job seekers are at a disadvantage because of that, especially if they have never been involved in the hiring process. So how many jobs out there are part of the hidden job market? I have no idea. People throw around 70%, 80%. It's a lot for sure. Nobody knows exactly how many, but it means that the most classic timeless things they're never going to go out of style. Relationships, people, even in the age of AI right now, people are still hiring people. There are still people behind the hiring process. So building relationships is never going to go out of style. That's something that AI cannot do. So that is the cornerstone of my coaching, is teaching people how to build those relationships and how to be targeted, how to be strategic, how to be a giver, not just a taker. There's a lot of things we can unpack with that.
Sure.
Definitely.
Yeah. And it's obviously your business model. So I don't want to make you dive too deep
Give it
into
all
that.
away, right?
That's right. That's right. And I know, you obviously got a business to run, so I won't do that. But when we're talking about that, is it something that's as simple as trying to develop as many relationships as you can in a form or fashion that allows for that conversation to come up organically? Yeah. Or would you say that there's kind of a process to how you reach out to people to really start this conversation, to get into that? A little bit of
both. I mean, it's a little bit of a science and an art. So, for example, I mean, are there magic words that you say? Is there some magic template I give to you? No, there's really not. Just so I'll use the example of the job that I just recently landed and how this came about. It's ironic because the woman who connected with me on LinkedIn, she just reached out to me, sent me a cold message. Was nothing, revolutionary or brilliant, but there was something about it, I think, in my intuition that I just kind of resonated with. But it was interesting because I didn't approach that relationship looking for a job at all. Not at all. It was just pure curiosity, just genuine connection. And I think that we need to approach more of our relationships that way and be willing to connect with somebody, even if you don't see a clear path to a job, right? That's really, really important, because that was not what I thought was going to come out of it. I wasn't expecting anything to come out of it. And I really think that's why it worked, because I didn't put any pressure on the relationship. Now, I was in a position where I didn't have to take a job. That's a luxury. I understand that, right? So a lot of people, when you are unemployed, you can't think past, I need a job, I need a job, I need a job, I need a job. It's the one thing you eat, sleep, and breathe it, right? But we actually need to take a step back and maybe not approach it that way, and more approach it as, I'm looking to expand my network. I'm looking to meet new people. Networking is just about making friends. Go out there and make friends. Let it organically come into the conversation that you're job searching. You don't have to make that the focal point of it. You don't have to put that into your initial outreach message. I probably wouldn't, but just focus on meeting new people, having conversations, making friends, and being open to seeing where it goes and seeing how you can add value in both ways.
I can imagine that by what you said right there is one of the reasons why there's a phrase that I used to hate it, but now I get it more than I used to, which was people that are currently employed are more attractive. You'll hear that sometimes, are more attractive than those that are going through a job search. I used to hate that so much, even when I had a job, because I was just like, that makes no sense. But the more that I've been in these conversations, it does make sense a little bit based on what you're saying, because they're just having a relationship. They're just talking. They don't have something behind them like, I need a job, that's driving probably the reason why they wanted to reach out. There's not a desperation in their voice. There's not any of that. And unfortunately, it's easier said than done when you are looking for a job to approach things that way, but it's becoming, I think, more and more important, because going the route, like even back in 2015, I was able to get a job on LinkedIn. Simple application, interview, job offer. 2020, it was the same, or 2022, I even got one that way. But nowadays, it seems like that route is it's almost like winning the lottery in a lot of ways, because every job posting you ever see, and as you've already mentioned, it may or may not even be real, but every job posting you see within the first like 3 hours has over 100 applicants, probably approaching 1,000 by a few days. And you're just kind of playing the lottery almost every time, it seems like. So it's becoming so much more important. But you and I are in a similar boat, and I know we've probably talked about this a few times, not recording, but, you know, I've been laid off 3 times or 4. Can't remember at this point. You just mentioned that you had been laid off like 5 times. So there's a lot of fear and self-doubt that starts to creep in to people's minds once you, especially if you've been laid off multiple times, but even if it's your first time, which I would argue is the hardest because you haven't gone through it before. It feels like more of a rejection than it does the second time. But how do you recommend somebody really start to try to overcome that fear and self-doubt that would allow them to be able to start cultivating these relationships to find that hidden job market that's out there for people?
That's a big question. I love that you mentioned that, because if it is easier said than done, but if you can job search and network as if you don't need the job, it's game changing. If you can find a way to harness that mindset now, even when you're unemployed, it's going to change everything. And it is possible. It absolutely is possible. But you're 100% right. That's what you have to do. You have to job search or network, like you're not job searching, because that's the best time to network. That's when the best networking is done, when you are employed. And that's when everyone stops, right? That's when everybody stops. So what can you do? I think first you just have to allow yourself to meet yourself where you're at and feel the feelings. If this is your first layoff, you're going to feel afraid, overwhelmed, angry, whatever it might be. Allow yourself a little bit of that. Okay. Don't stuff it away. We have to process our feelings. It's really important. I think that you also need a good support system. You do not want to go through this process alone, whether it's friends, whether it's family, whether it's a coach, whether it's a job search support group online or in person. I'm a big fan of in person, getting out of your house. It's very easy to be holed up in the house just behind a computer applying all day. Take care of your mental health. However you can get yourself in a better state, even if it's about something that's unrelated, right? So leaning into kids and pets and friends and things that make you happy, make sure you're devoting enough, not only time, but mental energy to those things to get yourself up into a bit of a higher vibration, right? And then, then we do have to take action. I would be a little bit more methodical about my job search, devote time to it and schedule that, and then devote time for fun and relax, just as you would if you were in a job. If you were in fact, I had a conversation with a client just today that I was coaching. And we talked about, even though he's unemployed and he's job searching full time, put an out of office out. Go, take time off the way that you would if you were employed. There have some separation between those things. And that did a lot for his mental health as well. And he's somebody who's coming on, I think, a year here, unemployed. So I think that taking care of your mental health, finding a good support system, those are all the foundation for this.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love that. And, I've heard it said a few times that, and it's easier said than done, but if you have the ability to look at your time in between as an opportunity to really search out where you want to go in your career. There's a guy that I've watched on YouTube a bunch. He's real popular, Gary V. And people have their opinions of him, especially with language and whatever else. But there's something that he's always said that resonates a lot, in that whatever age you're at, even if you feel like you're too old to make a major change or too old to do something different, you're not nowadays. I'm 39, and he's like, you're still young relatively in your life. You have a lot of time left. People are living longer. You can do whatever you want to do. You can start over if you want to, but you have to understand those risks. But what comes with that is being able to find clarity in where you want to go and what direction you want to go. I know with myself, I've been a project manager for almost 15 years, but that market is very competitive. It is getting harder with AI. Attitudes are changing of what type of person's needed for a PM. There's some places that believe that they just want a subject matter expert that can just kind of do PM stuff on the side. But there's other places that still are more traditional. But in terms of getting clarity, if someone was to come to you, if I was to come to you right now and say, I'm looking to really determine and get clarity on where I want to go in my career path, what would be some things that you would advise me to do?
Yeah, a lot of people lack clarity more than they think, right? And they're applying to a wide range of jobs, and that's can absolutely impact your results, definitely. So when I'm in a coaching session with a client, we kind of dissect things a little bit. So for example, a lot of times people will know something is misaligned and doesn't feel right, but they don't know what. Well, there's a number of things it can be. Sometimes it's that maybe if they're currently working, or even we could look at their last job if they're not, it's the company. So we might ask, is this something related to the company that you're at? Because sometimes we think we're in the wrong job, we're just at the wrong company. Or sometimes we're at the right company, but we're in the wrong job or not at the right level, right? And we get our wires crossed a little bit. We don't know where the pain is actually coming from. So I walk clients through some questions about that. Is this something that could be solved by changing companies? Is it their culture? Is it their leadership? Or is it something that's specific to the line of work that you are in? Okay, let's drill into that. Where, what are you doing throughout the day that you're meeting up with this resistance and it's more uncomfortable, right? Or is it maybe you feel like you've hit a wall and you're not advancing? I hear that all the time from clients. They feel like they've just hit a ceiling at the company and it's become kind of monotonous and they're not growing and they're not learning, right? All three of these have different approaches and different solutions because they're different problems, right? So all we know sometimes is that I don't like where I'm at anymore, so I'm just going to go start job searching. So they just dive in without realizing, wait, what do I want to get out of this? What actually needs to be different in this role? Let me take this opportunity to do some self-evaluation and ask myself some really hard questions about what is my role? Could I have shown up better in this role? Is there anything that I could have done perhaps to be better? We often overlook our own role in this as well. So my questions would focus on all of those things. Is it something that you can do differently? Is it the company? Is it the jobs, the level you're at? Where is it? And we would, probe a little bit deeper within those.
And where would you say passion or, the fancy, people will use purpose, passion. Sometimes they're interchangeable. But where would you say that fits in to this discussion? Because it seems like, and this happened a lot with COVID, people started realizing what they were really into. People started changing. There's the big conversation about remote versus not. People got a taste of that. They realized that that was a lifestyle that they thrived in or didn't thrive in and wanted to go one way. But where would you say passion fits into that? And maybe trying to determine if your passion has an economic value. If one of your values that may be your passion, for instance, I have a passion for this. I have a passion for music. I have a passion for golf, right? But where being able to determine where that economic factor is that could actually turn into a career, or should that be one of the later things that people consider when going through this exercise?
Well, it's a highly individualized question, because the truth is we all want different things out of our careers. And do I believe the old adage that everyone can just follow your passion and that'll be okay? No. I'll be honest, no, I don't. I don't think that that's what everybody even needs out of their job, right? So sometimes when we take a passion or a hobby we have and make a job out of it, it kills it. It's not always a good thing. For some people, when you put the pressure to pay your bills onto that thing you love, you don't love that thing anymore. That's a consideration, but that doesn't happen to everybody. So it's something that so if that's the case, for example, if somebody is thinking about, I have this passion for, whatever, maybe they even want to start coaching people. I've had people turn around and do what I do after working with me. I've had people start coaching, I want to do what you do, whatever it is, or golf or whatever. I would tell people, start doing it first for free. Start doing it. Get some friends, get some family, start actually doing that thing without quitting your day job, and then grow it a little bit, and you follow your intuition, and you will know if the scales tip and you want to go make a job out of it. But test it out first and see how well you do doing it for free without any pressure on it to pay your bills, right? But I think that the heart of it is the question, how much does passion play a role for everybody? That's completely individual. Some people are really okay just having a job to pay their bills, and they get their passion other places in life. They love their hobbies. They love their side projects. They love rescuing dogs, right? Like they don't make a living out of it, but they have a passion-filled life, right? And so we can be creative. Passion can be, and meaning and purpose can be fulfilled in any way we want. A career is only one way. So there's nothing wrong with getting a job to pay your bills and then getting your fulfillment somewhere else, if you're okay with it. It's an agreement you make with yourself, right? Now, some people can't separate those two. So a lot of people go into very mission-driven work, nonprofits in the government space as well, because they don't separate those two things. So it's not a question I can answer for everybody. It's highly individual, and it depends on how you want your career to be. Do you want it to be based on one of your passions, or is that not a requirement? Everybody's different.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I mean, because you can look at, and I can even see where passion could it could blur you into thinking, oh, well, I'm just going to make money doing this. I have a passion to do this. Let's say I've mentioned I love doing this, right? And I think a trap that people would get into is you start looking at the podcasts that make a ton of money, right? You start looking at, say, Joe Rogan, or you start looking at Armchair Expert, or you start looking at all these different ones, the Mel Robbins. Mel Robbins,
yeah.
Podcast, which I think just took over Joe Rogan's podcast, right? So like you look at that and you say, oh, well, there's a lot of money to be had in this. And you overlook the fact that there's I think the number's 8 million podcasts in the world, right? And most of those are probably not making anything.
No.
So it's great that is what you want to do, but you got to be realistic too. And I think that I agree with you. It can cloud it. And if you start trying to bring money into it and making money into it, it could kill what you love to do. And then you're back to square one, and now you're having to search all over again. So
I kept my day job for a while before I went out and had periods of being just full-time entrepreneur. And I often also, in fact, for the better part of the last 10 years, I at least had a consulting job as a 1099 or something. There were stretches where I was full-time in Career Uprising, but there were more commonly times when I had a consulting or a part-time job or something. I'm just a big believer, especially now, in multiple streams of income, especially in this economy. Anything you can do is wise to have more than one stream coming in. So, I absolutely did not quit my day job right away. And then even after I did, I went back and got one.
Right.
So yeah, it's okay to do that.
So real quick, because I definitely want to get into career coaching here in a second, but I always also love to ask about this because there are people that undoubtedly, when you start going through a job search, start to think, can I start my own thing? Can I become my own boss and not have to deal with the corporateness of it and dealing with other people's whims that are deciding your future? And especially if you've just been let go, that's something that enters your mind. Yeah. You start to go like, gosh, I'm so tired of having to deal with something that has nothing to do with me, but it affects me. And now I'm out on my own and I'm having to search again and do all these. So what was it that kind of got you wanting to start your own thing? Was it the multiple income thing?
No,
was that kind of the main thing, or what was
the
thing that made you?
No, it was because I got fired and I was too chicken shit to go get a job again. I was, I really was. I was too afraid. I was like, how am I going to, because I'd only had the job for like 3 months. And then the one before that was like barely a year. And so I was like, I don't want to put this on my resume. I just launched a job search. I don't want to launch another one again. That just sounded like the worst thing in the world. Honestly, it did. And I had already had the idea to start a coaching practice. So it wasn't a new idea, but I didn't have any compelling reason to rock the boat, act on it until life threw me one, right? Knocked me out on my ass and I had to go. I had to find income. So I chose at that moment, rather than launching a job search, I said, okay, I just need to replace my income, which wasn't very big at the time. So I was like, I'm going to do it. I think I probably still applied for a job here and there. I can't remember, this was 10 years ago, but I threw all of that angst that I had from that situation into a flurry of activity. And within a week, I had a website stood up. I had packages fleshed out. I mean, it was like massive action that I was thrown into because I was like on fire from what had just happened to me, right? So that was what it was. It was not this brilliant, calculated, strategic move. It was like life knocked me out and I was like, okay, this is how I'm going to get back up. I'm going to do something different. Right. So that was how that happened. Quite honestly, there was a lot of fear in that too, because I was very afraid to try and explain being fired to my next employer. So I decided to avoid it and not. And luckily, I was able to make some income pretty quickly within a few weeks. But I did end up getting a temp job from an agency to supplement as well.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So career coaching.
Yeah.
Because it's something that is obviously intriguing. But I think that there is a lot of things for people to have to consider, right? It's not free.
Yeah.
And it is something that, can have a decent price tag to it.
Yeah.
But is obviously very beneficial for a lot of people and works really well. So who are the people that you would think, or when do you think it is probably the time for someone to consider that? Or what have you found to be the situations that people are in, whether it's mindset, whether it's kind of their drive at the time, or what is it that you feel is the best time for someone to consider going to a career coach?
It's a great question. It's hard for me to answer in a way because people come to me at all different stages, right? And so I'm going to say this, and I mean it not for self-serving purposes at all, but truly, it's best when people come to me or whoever they work with at as early as possible. Now, it doesn't mean you have to work with a coach after every time you're job searching, right? But if you, especially, I will say, maybe this will help people kind of narrow it down. If you haven't job searched in like pre-COVID, it's been since before then, I tell people you should probably get some help because the game has changed for sure. So I will say people who've had very long job tenures, that is one thing very unique to the people that I work with, because I typically work with mid and late career professionals. So a lot of people I work with, it's been 15, 20, 30 years since they've last, been on the market. They are terrified. They have no idea how to start it. That's somebody who needs a coach because, man, things have changed. But even since COVID, so even somebody who it's been 6 or 7 years, I would say there's some things you need to get up to speed with, right? If you haven't job searched yet in the age of AI and personal branding and all these things that have now entered the room, you're probably going to want to get some help. If you've job searched in the last couple of years, fairly recently, you may have a sense of what you're in for and what it takes. Maybe you don't as much, right? So it's really interesting because I have people who are very proactive and come to me like the day they're laid off and they're like, I want to nip this in the bud. Let's do it right now. And they haven't applied to a single job. And then I get people who come to me after they try it on their own and it's been 2 years and everything in between. So I've worked with people in all those situations that run the gamut. So it's kind of hard to say. And then there's people out there who hiring a coach or something is just not something they would ever normally do, right? So it's very individual. But I guess to answer your question, I would say if you have a long job tenure and you haven't been in the market in years, it would probably be helpful for you to work with somebody, whether it's in coaching or just getting your resume up to date at a minimum.
Is there a particular trait that someone would have or need to have or mindset someone should potentially be in that would help them be able to best utilize using a career coach?
Oh, you have to be coachable. Absolutely. You have to have curiosity. You have to have an open mind. You have to be able to take feedback and direction. There have been, it's not often, but there have been, probably I can count on one hand, a few clients where we've engaged and I've called it off and parted ways with them and said, this isn't going to work. Luckily, it's not happened often, but there are a few times when I can identify that somebody really isn't open. There's kind of a wall up. I have a hard time really connecting with them, communicating with them, or they have too much of a what can you do for me attitude versus how can I show up, right? How can I do the work, right? They do have to be willing to do the work. So that's most people who come to me though are really open to that. So curiosity, an open mind, able to receive feedback, willingness to get out of their comfort zone and do things differently. Occasionally, I do have somebody who comes to me and then they push back on everything and want to go back to doing all those things that they were doing before that didn't work for them because that's what they know, right? And I get it, but you're not going to get anything out of this. So you have to be willing to throw away what you know and adopt new habits and new actions. That might be new. It might be uncomfortable, but you don't have to do them alone. I'm there to partner with you.
Sure.
Yeah.
And hopefully there is a barrier to entry, right? It costs you something. So hopefully that barrier to entry helps most people remove any of that willingness not to do it because, you're paying for it. So
it does help in most cases. Yes. In most cases, every now and then somebody it's still not there. And a lot of times it's because they were never really comfortable with the investment but they kind of push through that. But I can tell. And so they're constant. It's hard to describe, but we're never going to be 100% comfortable with giving, thousands of dollars away for something like that. But at some level, you have to be willing to invest in yourself. And it needs to be something that is a priority for you, right? So some people kind of push through it and they do it, but they're not really comfortable with it. And I can usually kind of tell. So I pride myself on qualifying clients really well and making sure that they see this as an investment, not just in me, but in themselves, because that's really honestly what it is. I know it's a cliche, but it really is true. They're the ones who are going to benefit from it.
Yeah, no, it makes complete sense. And it's something that people should be wanting to do anyway, investing in themselves in some way, whether that be going the career coach route, going and educating themselves on something they don't know, learning something new about a profession, trying to master your profession. If you're wanting to stay in what you're doing, there's always something to learn. There's free classes out there. There's also classes you pay for. And, it's something you should always want to do, is try to improve yourself, to try to make yourself the most attractive that you can, so that when you get in front of that next opportunity, you utilize it and you strive and you thrive, at that next one, because you want that next one to be the one that sticks and that you're at for a while and that you're able to really move forward. But I can't thank you enough for coming on here, for reaching out to me and allowing me to come on yours and allowing yourself to come on here. Cause it's something that I just love, the ability to develop a community with people that I would most likely never meet in any other way is the coolest part of doing this. And so I got one last question for you, and then I definitely want you to plug your business and all the stuff that you offer. But if I was just first meeting you today and we had just started a conversation and I had just told you, hey, I just got let go, I'm a little bit out of sorts, I'm trying to figure out what my next move is, I've got bills to pay, I'm scared, I'm doing all this, what would be your advice for someone like that who's just starting that journey or is in the middle of it and is just kind of lost right now? What would be your biggest piece of advice for them?
It might not be what people would think, but what the first thing that I would tell that person or tell you to do is to actually, before you do launch a job search, before you start networking or calling anybody, or before you even look at your resume, I want you to sit with yourself and I want you to even visualize and start thinking about seeing yourself with that goal in mind. I'm a big visualization person, and it gets you in the right mindset. And we can't achieve something that we don't visualize, right? That we don't see actually happening. So I would actually have you just do some introspection, do some even journaling, and take a few days to just kind of go inward, cleanse out the feelings of what just happened, process them, and then start asking yourself some questions and being patient and listening to that still voice that has those answers. I'm very intuition driven. It was my intuition that got me this job that I'm in. It was my mindset. It was my intuition that allowed me to bypass that whole process that everybody goes through. So the first thing I would say to that person is to get quiet and go within for a little while and start processing their feelings and start casting a vision for what they want, not what they don't want. Then you can do all the tactical stuff in the job search. We're still going to do all that too, right?
Right.
But
that's all going to be there. Yeah.
Yeah. It's always going to be there. Yeah.
Yeah. You're going to have to do it. So I love just taking a second, especially for men. I obviously don't know how women feel when something like this happens, but I know with a lot of my friends, and if they've ever called me because they know that they've lost a job, the first thing that I notice they don't do is what you just said. They don't stop for a second. They don't process what happened. If they're mad, they don't allow themselves to be mad. If they're sad, they don't allow themselves to be sad for a couple days. They just forge through, and then it all hits them at a bad time.
Yeah.
Because they haven't processed what just happened. They're just thinking of what's next. And I understand that, you feel like you got to protect your family. You feel, depending on what your situation is, it can be
loss
different.
Of identity, livelihood. There's a lot to process there. Yeah.
Yeah. So I love that. I love that you said that.
I think you make a good point. We don't have to dive too much into this, but it is not always the same experience for men and women. It is not always the same.
Mm-mm.
So we can't assume that they always feel they're experiencing the same thing, but they might be processing it differently and making it mean different things. It's true.
Yeah. When I've said this before, so I apologize to anyone who's heard this before, but one of the biggest things that stuck with me was, unfortunately, my father also went through the same thing that I've gone through, right? Got laid off a bunch and things like that. And I remember her telling me, my mom telling me one time, what she was going through when he was going through that. And how she felt and the stress she felt from that, because she had a job. So now she feels more stressed to keep the job. She feels stress for him because he's going through this experience. She feels stress for the entire family because, you know, she had 2 kids. We had to eat. We had activities. We had diapers or whatever stage we were in. And just that always opened my eyes, because there's a very big, if you are fortunate enough to have a spouse that you go through life with, to be able to communicate with each other as well, because you're both going through something at this moment. It's not the same experience, but it is significant for both. But if you don't communicate that, misunderstandings can happen, things can get wacky, and you don't want to have that on top of the job, situation you're already in.
Absolutely. Yep.
So I know that definitely opened my mind. So I love that you mentioned the differences with men and women, spouses of the person who's going through it. I know at one point my wife and I was going to both be unemployed at the same time during this season. And I remember the only thing that I was thinking about, was hoping for more than even myself, was, gosh, I don't want her to have to go through this entire process. And luckily she is a rock star, got a new job and all of that, which is great for all of us. But I remember I was more thinking about her, because she's in the camp that you were describing earlier of, she had one job coming out of college, was able to be there for 16, 17 years. Wow. And then it happened.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a long time. You get your identity wrapped up in it and everything. And then just boom, you just separate after a day. That's like traumatic. Yeah.
It is.
Sure.
It is.
For sure.
Well, I definitely want to respect your time. I know we got a hard out. But I want to allow you to tell people where they can find you, and if they're interested in getting career coaching, where they can go. I know you have a book and a podcast and all those things. So
I do.
I want to give you time to plug that.
And well, thank you. And not everybody, of course, like you said, can afford career coaching, and that's okay. There's a lot of free or low cost ways that people can engage with me. So my book is one, What You Didn't Learn in School, Lessons on Growth, Change, and Living Your Best Life. You can get it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. I have hard copies. If someone wants a signed copy, I'll send it to you. Just contact me. But I wrote that book because I wanted to kind of put together everything that I had learned thus far in a collection of short essays for people. It's inspirational. There's also a lot of career stories in there as well from my clients too. But my website's careeruprising.com. I have a lot of program options that people can choose from, but I also have a podcast that they can listen to. It's right there on the website. It's on Apple, Spotify, all the major outlets. So, consider the podcast first. That's free. The book is very low cost. There are some ways that you can engage and get some help that won't cost much, or if anything.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
Well, again, I can't thank you enough. Hopefully I get to talk to you again here soon, because I'm sure that there's something else we can explore.
We're going to be celebrating you landing very soon. I know we are, and I'll be the first to celebrate with you.
Great. Well, it's good to see you again, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you.
Well, that'll do it for this episode of the Job Seeker's Journey podcast. I want to thank Lorraine for coming on. And as we mentioned in our conversation, she was gracious enough to have me come onto her podcast, Career Uprising, which will be coming out in August. And I'm really excited for you to hear that conversation as well. If you want to hear more from Lorraine, I highly encourage you to check out her podcast, Career Uprising. It has a lot of great information similar to what she shared here today and more. And it's just a wonderful resource for you. If you're looking for a career coach, she would be a fantastic career coach for you. Go to her website, careeruprising.com, and check it out. And I highly encourage you to consider making an investment on yourself. If this is your first episode listening to us, thank you for turning on the play button. I really appreciate it. If you have listened to us for multiple times, it is an honor for you to hit that play button every time you do. If you know someone who is going through a job search and is looking for some encouragement, some help, some additional information, please share this with them. Please like and subscribe on all of the ways you can listen to a podcast. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please like, subscribe, and start a conversation on YouTube. But from all of us here at the Job Seekers Journey podcast, we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.